Just about 20 minutes ago, a Texas House committee voted unanimously to adopt articles of impeachment of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton.
The chair moves that the committee adopt the articles of impeachment against Warren Kenneth Paxton, Attorney General of the state of Texas.
This comes after the House General Investigating Committee listened to 3 hours of testimony yesterday about years of alleged misconduct by the Texas Attorney General.
KVUE's Natalie Haddad was in the room when the committee took the vote. She joins us now live from the Capitol with the latest. Natalie.
Brian, Ashley was just in the room next to us where those articles of impeachment were just introduced. But before the committee came back out to make that announcement of that decision, tensions were already high, with a staff member from the Office of Attorney General Ken Paxton arriving here, seemingly interrupting the committee's meeting to say that he wanted to testify as a resource witness, but was of course not allowed to because it was a special meeting. Now, this is kind of how it went down. So when we were in the room, he arrived and said that he wanted to again serve as a resource witness. We learned that his name is Chris Hilton, and he serves as the Chief Litigation Division Chief for the Office of Attorney General Ken Paxton. He interrupted that meeting, insisted he testify as a resource witness. He claimed that the investigating committee never contacted the Office of Attorney General. And just as a quick recap, Mr. Paxton is being investigated for a list of allegations, including false statements, misuse of funds, and misuse of power. Now, in that committee room, Hilton claimed the testimony heard yesterday by investigators looking into those allegations against Paxton was full of falsehoods. He called this an illegal investigation and questioned why impeachment could possibly be on the table for Mr. Paxton.
Any proposed impeachment can only be about conduct since the most recent election. The voters have spoken. They want Ken Paxton.
The continue. Okay. Now, the video you see right now is us seemingly going after Mr. Hilton. He came to testify, but quickly said that he could no longer answer our questions. Now, he did, before walking away from us, he reiterated how he believed this was an illegal investigation, but quickly said he could no longer speak with us. He was asked if he was here at the direction of Mr. Paxton or if he came on his own accord, and he would not answer. He was also asked about Mr. Paxton's whereabouts and refused to answer that question. And again, when he began to walk away, he said that he could no longer speak with us, but we asked why he could no longer answer our questions if he was here to initially testify, but of course was not allowed to. He instead refused any further interaction with reporters. Now, as for what comes next, now that Texas House of Representatives will be briefed on the investigation and its findings, and then they will seemingly take a vote. We will have a breakdown of what comes next later and keep you updated right here on KVUE. But for now, I'll send it back to you, Brian and Ashley.
All right, thank you, Natalie. We are now joined by Scott Braddock, editor of the Quorum Report. Scott, you've been covering Texas politics for a mighty long time now. Let's talk about the significance of this, first and foremost.
Historic. The last time that any office holder in Texas was impeached by the legislature was a judge who was impeached, a judge from South Texas, and that was back in the 70s. And actually, it's interesting that right now, the articles of impeachment that have been drawn up against Attorney General Paxton, that the template for that is the document that was used back in the 70s to impeach that judge, since it's the last time that it happened. And for a statewide official to be impeached in Texas is a huge deal. I mean, here you have someone who has been elected in general elections multiple times. Voters have basically sort of looked the other way, most of them, the majority have, with these allegations against Paxton. He's been able to, secure re-election in primaries and general elections. But now you have Republicans policing one of their own and saying this guy is corrupt and he needs to go.
Scott, we've seen impeachment proceedings at the federal level the last couple of years, more recently than that. Does this process work similar to the way it works at the federal level?
Very similar, yeah. And even those veterans of the Texas Capitol have to break out the original owner's manual for the state, the Texas Constitution, and go through it right now. They're doing that to check up on that process that Natalie was mentioning in her report. What's going to play out next. The full House will receive the articles of impeachment. It's my understanding they may vote soon as Saturday. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but as soon as Saturday, we may see a full vote of the House to impeach Paxton. And that's just a simple majority in the House, 76 votes. And then it would be sent to the Texas Senate, which could remove him from office if 2/3 of senators agree to do that. Of course, here you have a Republican who is accused of multiple crimes over many years. And so you may have some Republicans who don't want to go along with that, right, because of partisan politics. But the fact is that they would only need, according to the math, they would only need 8 Republican senators, I believe, to join with all the Democrats to remove Paxton from office. I was told, and there was some reporting to this effect as well in some other places, that Paxton has basically told his staff, the Attorney General's office, he fully expects to be impeached by the House, and then we see what happens when it moves to the upper chamber.
And let's talk about what happens when it moves to the upper chamber, because it's a bit complicated given that his wife is a senator, right, Scott?
Mm-hmm. Right, and I've been asked that a lot over the last few days, the last 48, 72 hours or so. People say, what does Angela Paxton, his wife, who, as you mentioned, is a senator from North Texas, what does she do? Is there a way for her to recuse herself? In the Texas Constitution, it says that all senators need to sit for this and sit through what will look like and will be a trial in the Senate. But is there a way for her to simply not vote or vote present? That would, of course, change the math a little bit on what it would take to remove the Attorney General, who is in some serious hot water here.
Scott, we're almost to the end of this session. You said the vote for the House could happen on Saturday. The session is almost over. What does that mean? Does that mean a special session for this specific reason for the Senate?
Interesting. There would not have to be a special session for this purpose. The Texas Constitution does allow for the House to convene itself. The governor doesn't have to do that. Let's say that they don't vote this weekend and they wait until later. The Speaker of the House could convene the House just to consider articles of impeachment against Paxton or any office holder they were investigating. And then the Senate would have to follow suit. That's also in the Constitution. So this doesn't really have anything to do with whether there's a special session or not. This is a very special circumstance.
Scott Braddock with the Quorum Report. We thank you so much for taking some time out to talk with us today, Scott.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ashley.